member of many Bulgarian and international association, and I even don't know all of them. But here he is as a member of the Bulgarian Ecological Association, За Земята for the Earth, and it's associated with the International Friends of the Earth Association, the network, you know it. And you saw in your shadow the topic of his lecture, and now he will begin. Okay.
And we've got 30 minutes. I usually can't fit into 30 minutes,
15,
but this time I have
15 and after that questions.
But this time I have to fit in because I run for a bus in Chiprovtsi. Well, the topic was urban development and development in general. And because we cannot have the PowerPoint presentation, you can have some scuttling.
But we have some docs.
I hope I can provoke a little bit of just the thinking process of what it takes for the urban development and for what it takes as resources to support the development of the future urban environment. We live in a world which is currently 7 billion people, and this growth of population is unlikely to stop before the mid of this century, and before we hit the number 9 billion. And this takes a lot. It's a never-changing world. The abyss that's between each following generation is just tremendous. I'm sure you have troubles explaining to your parents a lot of the things that are going on nowadays and why you do the stuff you're doing. So do I. But yeah, we have cities that are growing bigger and bigger, rural areas that some of them are depopulating, some of them not so much, considering the growth of population around the world. But it takes more and more resources to feed in the needs of our cities. And where do these resources come from? Would they be raw materials, just extracted from the environment? Or would it be recycled materials, reused stuff that we use in much smarter way and much more efficiently? This is up to all of us. The way we push the industries and the way we live as consumers, as people who vote, as people who make everyday decisions, and who don't try only to blame external factors about the world we are living in and the situation we are found to be in. And I'll try to ask questions to all of you, because maybe you know the answers. Hit me if it gets too complicated, and hit me if it gets too simple as well, because I'm not really quite sure what's the level of everyone as education and knowledge, but I'll try to keep it simple as much as I can. Can you make a guess how many people daily head from non-urbanized environment, meaning rural areas and even native populations of people, say even people in the jungle, how many people daily head towards the urban areas, towards the cities, to look up for their near future?
As a number?
Yes.
Approximately.
No, daily.
се преместват от
we would have made the transition to a fully urban environment in 3.5 days. If it was fully rural, 3.5 days. Every day. Yes. Try to make a guess. Let's make a very, very quick guess, because we have just 15 minutes and probably we're now half.
You ask how many people have to live in urban environment?
That move from rural or from their native environment, even from the wild, per day.
Almost 40%.
Okay, any other?
Almost 40% right now.
No, daily, in one day, every day. How many?
40,000.
102,000. Okay?
I say 40,000.
40,000.
I say
Anyone
a
else?
million. A million.
A million. Any other guess?
Аз вече не можа да разбера въпроса в
Well,
какъв
about
мащаб
200,000 people
вероятно за България.
every day.
Значи 200 хиляди души
Ам,
всеки ден се движат.
Това не е.
Какъв отговор?
This is the answer.
You mean in Bulgaria or in
No, globally. In Bulgaria, it's just 7 million people. You see that things are widely not populated, and this has its beauty, but it also has the downsides.
Те се преместват
Do
явно от
you know what was significant? One thing that was significant about the rural to urban development, or vice versa, last year in Bulgaria.
Yes, that the vice versa was more than from urban to from non-urban
България за първи път миналата година е имало повече сдружения от
many years.
От градовете към селата и така. Това е чудесно.
From 60 years.
Сяри долу. Сяри долу.
So last year in Bulgaria, for the first time since 60 years, 6 decades in a row, we had the
Това не
first
се е случвало от 60 години.
negative growth of the cities, and more people actually going back to the villages and to the rural areas than the other way around. So if it's a
Who did the survey?
it's national statistics, people getting
Да,
registered.
това е от
It
националната
was put on
статистика.
the news. It's nice.
А публике?
It's official, yeah. According to the legislation.
Can you name some of the resources that we extract currently? Well, does everyone know what's extractive industries?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you try to give a definition? Someone. Not a definition. Okay, just describe it. You don't have to.
Those are industries that are extracting resources.
Така, следващия въпрос ще бъде за
Examples of it?
Стига.
обаче да видим ще е въпроса. Тихо за уточняват, дали всички знаем какво значи добивна индустрия.
Yes, yeah, the mining, coal industry, the oil industry, all of this. What will happen when if we make a transition now from the fossil fuels toward the so-called low carbon economy? What kind of resources will we start to use less, and what kind of resources will we need to increase the extraction of if we want to make it? How do you see the future? Can you make some guess?
Ако преминем от сегашната петролна икономика към тая
Why?
нисковъглеродна,
From what kind of power stations?
кои
And
ресурси
why
ще
do we need more
променим
electricity?
като потребление? На кои ще се намали, на кои ще се увеличи?
Stuff is getting also more energy efficient. Is this going somewhere?
Yeah, they're both going somewhere, but still not perfect. So it's still not. It's not as efficient.
It's hard to produce and it pollutes a lot of environment, a lot.
What if it's clean
Отговорите не са
electricity?
убедителни до
What
момента.
is the effect of it?
If it's sun power, it's wind or wind power.
What does it take to produce solar panels? Are they
Добре,
equally
ако ще
clean?
правим слънчеви панели,
No,
да се
there's.
произвеждат.
I'm not trying to put you in a trap or something. I'm just trying to lead to questions which are making you think what's the impact, because the
Смисъл на това
choices
въпрос
for
е
the
да
future,
разберем в
if we
тази
want to
промяна
keep
са
our way of
осъществи.
life, are basically making a compromise
И
in
други
a way.
промени ще трябва да бъдат.
Probably it can't be fully perfect. Nobody wants to go back to the caves, as people say, but there should be some compromise which lets us have less severe impact.
В крайна сметка, всяка
on
една
the planet.
промяна идва с някакъв
It's just that
компромис.
the mathematics are not working because we use more resources than the planets can reproduce. To continue this direction, what will happen when we move to electric mobility?
Удобен въпрос е с какви промени ще настанат, като преминем към електромобилите.
Resource-wise, what will take? What does it take to have what do we need first as an infrastructure? How will the e-mobility look like? What do we need to have more?
You need chargers everywhere so you can charge your car.
But first you need cars.
Yeah, of course.
The cars are already there.
Yeah. Of course.
It will be much more widespread in a way.
Yeah, you need good enough chargers.
Yeah,
It's expensive.
the economic side is one thing, but the mathematics of resources is what I'm trying to show you here. So what it takes for the moment if we want to have electric cars? What do we need to put into the electric cars?
Batteries.
Metals, plastic,
And they're
Glass.
produced out of what?
Something nasty.
In order to produce them, we are actually
Lithium, silicium.
Lithium is one thing. Yes?
Тук
How
говорим
do you
вече
know
за
how much
електро,
is
които
the
влизат в рамките на акумулаторите, лития.
different kind of engines, not just batteries.
true?
Are clean.
Which is a matter of the again of maybe future development, research, and some discoveries. But at the moment, the trend is actually indeed the lithium-ion batteries. But is the lithium so significant in the batteries? Actually, do you know how much lithium has risen its price since 2009? About 400%. So fourfold is the increase of the lithium on the international market. But is it that expensive, cars in the lithium batteries? Can you make a guess how much of the production costs for the lithium-ion batteries are actually based on the lithium?
3%.
This is the right guess. Bingo. Did you know it? Or?
No, I guess.
It was a wild guess. Okay, the wild right guess. You should do the lottery today. Yes.
Can I ask some questions? Who is in the hotel Turlakite from our group?
We don't count this in my 15 minutes, no?
No, it's just a
It's a
second.
time off.
Just
Okay.
a second. Do you know that the electricity system of the hotel is absolutely solar?
Петър тък му каза, че в
From Aerosolar,
батерии,
Eurosolar. You are on solar energy in the hotel. Thank you. It's, for example, that
Okay.
So it's 3%. Do you know what other strategic resources, so to say, will be required more in the future with the development of the lithium-ion batteries and the electric cars?
Resources as in raw resources. Well, it depends on what we decide to make roads out of. Yeah, your wheels.
The engine.
Oh, the engine.
The electric engine. What does it require if you want to make an electric engine?
Metal, obviously.
copper,
You're close.
Steel.
Brass is a product of. Yeah, somebody said copper.
yes,
Copper. About 50% rise of the copper production is expected in the world by
Само че
because of the rise of the electric vehicles. And actually, this, not exactly the lithium production, is one of the nastiest parts related to the electric mobility and to the production anyway. Because usually copper deposits come with a lot of nasties, mixed with a lot of nasties like arsenic. I'll give an example from Bulgaria. One of the biggest copper mines here, not the biggest, called Chelopech, is an underground mine, which is currently operated by a Canadian company, and they crush about 2.4 million tons of rock per year. Then they produce concentrate, which contains copper and other valuable stuff, but it contains also arsenic. So when they export this to Africa, to Namibia, they smelt it there in a big factory, and all the arsenic products, which are highly toxic, are dumped there near a small town. It's not a village; it's a 12,000 people town. And we are talking about production of a material, the copper and the gold and the stuff which is extracted, ends up at about 10,000 tons of arsenic trioxide produced per year.
10,000 tons.
10,000 tons. The toxicity of this material is actually 70 to 120 micrograms is the lethal dose for a human being. So just from this one mine we are accumulating so much stuff at the spot that if we, well, this is a very tricky calculations, but if we have to count like how many people you can kill, I think they can kill the human population about 40 times from what they have gathered there. And as I said, this is not even the biggest mine in Bulgaria. Another mine, which is significantly bigger, Asarel, produces copper too, and it crushes about 13 million tons of rock per year. This is 5 times more than the Chelopech production. Not so trashy material as the Chelopech mine, but still it does have an impact. And most of the people in the industry that you can talk to would tell you off the record that the production of this mine is even much more dirtier at the end, and they neglect a lot more processes compared to what the Canadians produce. So, indeed, what is going to take for our future cities if we develop the urban areas with all the luxuries of the modern life that we have, where are we going to take the resources from? Because also in these cities the population gets more and more aware of what the impact of their lives is. I mean, we have the internet, we have everything, so at the end there are more and more people that try to be more accountant for their way of consumption, and even to push the rest of the society to take a little bit of accountability. It ends up in the backyard of the developing countries. And it's been so for decades, but it's even more nowadays. How do you think this development is... Now, this is a question without an exact answer, but I just want you to imagine a little bit and to participate. How do you imagine the possible future scenarios would be for the resources that we need? Given that we don't want to make a compromise with our way of life, not too big compromise.
I've heard that Kondarev had developed a hydrogen engine which produces only water, but it's extremely difficult to extract the hydrogen, which is in the air basically. That takes a lot of money to extract it from the air.
Why from the air?
But you've got fuel cells. Usually they extract the hydrogen from using fuel cells, which is actually quite easy, but at this stage too slow. As far as I know.
They're entering actually now the factory production with some of the stuff. I think that the Japanese are betting actually, but we're not talking about just about e-mobility. I just gave you an example what is the impact of the industry. I'm just trying to make you imagine the future as a whole.
I think realistically, because we want to solve problems ecologically, but most times we don't. A lot of effort and maybe billions right now are invested in reusable space rockets, as you know, in the past few years, and Elon Musk and SpaceX and blah blah blah. So in the coming years we will probably have a very stable industry constructing reusable rockets. I mean, there are a lot of problems now, but they'll be fixed. That's what we're aiming for. So at some point, I'm pretty sure we're gonna start dropping toxic waste in space, just throwing it in orbit somewhere.
Ta-da.
Empty space.
Solution just like this.
Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna do. I'm not saying it's right, it's horrible, but I think we're gonna do it.
Also, we're
Because
gonna
it's the
have
lazy choice.
we're gonna have also space elevators.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that.
How many magical solutions did the humanity develop in the last years, although promising?
Tons of prototypes of biogas industry, really huge, and
But it's not a magical solution. It's something that requires effort. And
yeah, but it could be magical solution if we spend millions and millions of euros, because it's still prototypes and we can't afford to maintain it. I mean, solar panel, they are really huge. We need all this area to have something for one town or city, and when it's break in the middle, we need to change everything. It costs millions, so we dump it.
It depends, because I think they're developing, they are actually, I don't think they're developing all the time, newer technologies for solar panels, because although we've known that this energy can be used for quite some time, and we're still working on it because it's not so wide use, even though we think so. And Elon Musk, I'm going to mention him again, in one presentation he showed a map of the world, and using his company's future plans for energy storage and conservation, which they're already doing, it said that if you look at the map, and you look at Africa in the desert, in a very unpopulated area, in the middle of the desert, it's a little square like this on the map that takes basically no living space, really small square. And it said that if you cover this whole space with solar panels, it can basically power the whole world using the technology that are going to be developed in the future years, and the energy storage technology that's already been developed. They're using this right now, and I think last year or a year and a half ago, they presented these wall panels that people are already buying all across the world, that are basically storing sun energy, and you can use it whenever you want, even when there's rain outside and whatever.
The solutions that are ready, that you mentioned about, they're not effort and hassle-free.
Yeah, of course.
The solution of dumping toxic waste in the space actually sounds like hassle-free, doesn't depend on us, we'll figure out a future solution. Be very careful with this kind of stuff, because if you look at the cartoons from the 50s and 60s that show the shiny, glittering future, none of it is here by the time that they predicted. The nuclear industry could not deliver what they were promising. There are a lot of other industries that could not deliver at all. The quick fix, easy solutions that doesn't require any of our efforts and thinking have never worked so far.
Oh, it does require a lot of effort and thinking.
So you will be in the team of developers?
No, I'll be against it because it's a horrible idea just to dump our waste in space. But I think they're going to do it because it's relatively easy, because the people are already working on it, and yeah, we're going to pollute space as big as it is, but still.
Also, mining industry is planning to go into space.
Yeah, of course.
Well,
and we're still waiting for the satellites to fall down.
Yeah.
Yes, actually, in fact, future development might not be surprising if we actually have cosmic waste being dumped on Earth instead of Earth waste being dumped into space. I don't want to scare you, but there's no easy thing. What do you think about the solution of recycling? But a current argument of many people in the industry against recycling is that basically it's so much cheaper to have raw resources, that you basically really shoot yourself in the leg as business if you try to use recycled materials. What is the solution to this?
A compromise for sure.
Who will make the compromise?
Everyone needs to make a compromise.
Who is everyone? How would you make a compromise?
Personally, I don't have a business which has the choice to recycle or not, but if I were, I would have had to make this decision because it's obvious that ecological causes are in a conflict with business usually, especially when it comes to resources. So it's no surprise that the business shoots themselves in the leg if they decide to recycle. Of course, it's bad for them, and there's cheaper alternatives. But yeah, there should be a compromise.
That Elon Musk is trying?
Yeah, of course he is.
I think he is too. He's making a great effort towards abolishing fossil fuel consumption, and nobody has done such a step in this direction like he did.
But other industry players are following him, which is probably a good news.
He just has a lot of money that are his own.
Up till now, the worst hazard was the fossil fuel. There is a man who invented a way to demolish, to abolish this, and now everybody is aiming at him, which is not right, according to me, because he delivers a way of clean movement of people.
I didn't understand what is not right. Sorry.
Because several times his name was mentioned, and actually it sounds that we're trying to find something bad about him, about this way of working.
No, but I think the guy doesn't mind competition. He even gave all his patents to the industry. So I think if a person is innovative enough and he's not trying to follow but to lead, then...
Sorry, can I interrupt you? There were comments. Some people have no idea who that guy is, so if you like to explain just in a few words.
Go ahead.
Okay, Elon Musk is basically a billionaire that is responsible for a few things that are very huge and important. For example, PayPal. So he basically created a way for people to pay for stuff in a long distance billing system without going to banks and stuff like that directly. He's also the creator of the SpaceX program, which is the space program we were talking about that's right now is working on reusable space rockets. And his goal is to basically make space travel cheap for random normal people and of course for industries and stuff like that. He also created Tesla Motors, which is the company that produces the Tesla electric cars, who are probably the most famous electric cars in the world. The Tesla Model X car was voted Car of the Year, I think, in 2014 or something like that. Yeah, and he also created Solar City, which is basically a place that tries to integrate all the solar technology his company is working on. He's creating huge factories for electric cars and for technologies like that. They're only solar charged, basically powered. And the desert, he's done Hyperloop. There's a really fast electromagnetic train technology that he's working on right now. So he's done all of these things, and he's basically all the time. He's a very hard worker. He's been a millionaire for a long time, a billionaire, I don't know. And he's famous for risking a lot of his money to invest in new projects. So my opinion is that he succeeds in this because it's his own money and he's willing to put it in such projects. It's not some very nice person who has a really great idea but depends on other people's money and on investors. Of course, he has help from a lot of organizations and has supporters and competitors that agree with him and discuss things. When, as he said, he released for free all of his technologies as an open source thing for competitors to use and to develop. So that's Elon Musk.
Направил всички патенти публично достъпни.
He's a bit mixed, I think.
Мисля, че е роден в Южна Африка или поне там е отрасъл.
Yeah, I think he was born, but he's basically American, but he has some...
Just Google him.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have to say that the guy is really changing the face of the industry, because just 2 years ago I made we were betting with colleagues in Prague what would be the future in 2020, and one of my bets was that about 50% of the cars that come out of production in the Western world will be electric by 2020, and all of my colleagues were like, bullshit. And currently we see that the biggest motor producers are Ford is aiming for 40% output of their cars to be electric by 2020. Volkswagen, after the scandal, is now quickly refurbishing their image with electric vehicles. So things are going on with a really rapid step towards electric mobility.
Infinity has the same politics. If you return your car, your Infinity car, to them, they can, for some money, they can put an electric motor engine in it, and they can turn you back.
Refurbish it? Wow, I didn't know about it.
Or if you turn back your car, you can buy a new one, but for less money. And after that, they will repair your previous car and sell to somebody else. It's second-hand Infinity car, but it's better that it has an electric engine.
I have a question.
May I just add something interesting?
There's a question here.
I have a question. These nice electric cars, they don't make their emissions when you drive them. It's great. But from where they take their electricity?
Depends if you have a liberalized market or not.
Please.
I just wanted to add something about Tesla, because it's really interesting. If you buy a Tesla car, like a Model S Tesla, for example, all your electricity that you need to charge your car for the rest of your life, if you're charging from Tesla power posts, power chargers, like they're located in various places, all the electricity you're going to use to charge your car is free for you. So Tesla basically gives you free electricity for the rest of your life if you buy an electric car. And one of the main issues that people were addressing was that it takes a really long time to charge an electric car, but with their new power charger, you can charge your full motor for battery 40 minutes or so. So it's really, I can agree with you, and I think it's really happening.
I would like to add something that I didn't know, and I suppose it was told me by a friend of mine who writes computer scripts as a programmer, and he told me that the software that runs Tesla cars actually can be downloaded and installed like on a cell phone, on an Android. So any invention that comes from the developers can be downloaded, and you can have it immediately on your car.
And also Tesla has another politic. If you buy a car from them, you get a free station. They can put the station in your garage, or in front of next to your park place. It's free for you.
How much is the car then?
Too expensive, right?
Yeah, they're too expensive. I wanted to buy a Tesla car, but believe me,
Are they?
In a few years,
I hope so.
Yes, what we do when we Google a name to save energy or to produce free energy.
Yeah, a lot of videos.
What we are doing to produce sustainable energy, where we are googling names, is all the big data centers that are consuming so much energy.
Google is aiming to be carbon free, and I don't know if they made it. So I don't know if it's that bad already. I think that the guys have some strategy. I don't like them as a corporation, but I have to. I'm quite okay when companies move move to clean energy. But I just wanted to answer the question of Dragomir. Where does your energy come from? Yes, if it's the old polluting power stations, it's not that nice if you have an electric car. But first of all, even if you get your energy from the dirtiest energy source, meaning coal, electric mobility is still more efficient than the internal combustion engine. Because the internal combustion engine is basically a heater on wheels. Most of the energy that gets transformed into during the burning process does not transform into moving, it transforms into heat. That's why you need to. It's much more efficient, and I'll give you an example with you know this car Chevrolet Volt. It's something like a strange hybrid that Chevrolet did a couple of years ago. It's a big limousine car, and it burns gasoline, but it does not burn it as internal combustion to get movement. It burns it as a generator which produces electricity, which then moves the electric. How much do you think it takes per 100 kilometers? How much fuel?
3 liters, something like that.
It's 1 liter. It's 1 liter, and it's for such a big limousine with internal combustion. I think it cannot be reached. It really shows how much more efficient it is to basically get the stuff moving instead of getting something to heat up. It's also with one of the most wasteful things you can do is basically to heat your home in the winter with electricity, if it's not thermal pump or something like it. And there are many other potentials when it comes to having an electric car, if the system is actually properly developed. Because basically, if you're on a free market or if you have solar charging stations while you're at work, instead of having your car just staying somewhere, it can actually charge and use the excess of solar electricity which is currently available. Later on, when you're back home, part of this electricity, if you would not require the entire battery charge on the next day, can be actually used to balance the energy system, so you can plug it back into your homes, and this is one of the plans for the electric cars. Because usually mornings and evenings, these are the peaks of the consumption that require additional capacity. Like in most of the countries, you need to have gas-fired power stations, which are very flexible, and they can be on demand, turned on and off when they're required. Even in Bulgaria, when you see the morning and the evening peak of energy consumption, this definitely does not go along with the curve of the solar production. So you need balancing capacities. And if we cover this with coal-fired power plants, for example, which are not flexible at all, so you cannot turn them on and off on demand, because it's not that easy, because it takes a lot of nasty emissions if you shut them down and then you turn them on, not like the gas-fired ones, for example. There's indeed a lot of potential for these battery storage and for the electric mobility that can be used to much better balance the electric system.
Also, sorry, let's not forget about.
I think I need to leave for a bus soon. So.
Okay. No, it is not for a bus, but we had one more visit in the hut over there. And we could see
Last questions and remarks.
I was going to mention roads, solar-powered roads that charge your car that are also being developed.
Maybe something like conclusion at the end. Is there a conclusion?
Is there a
I don't want to conclude. The fact that I'm running for a bus is not important, and I hope that you will continue talking about these kind of topics of the future development later on. Because it's, again, the task is really hard. Having 9 billion people, that most of them should have better lives, or at least what we imagine is better lives, because sometimes the development that is imposed, especially on the developing world, is a nasty process. We think that, wow, you know, these people, they are going to discover the electricity and everything that Western civilization has, but it's not that nice. Well, we live in a country that not so long ago was also very underdeveloped, so to say. And I'm sure all of you have listened to the memories of grandmas and grandfathers and grand-grandmothers and grand-grandfathers of what it has been, say, like 60 or 70 years ago. Some people find the development fantastic, but I'm sure that you can have a little bit of critical thoughts if you look around and if you say, well, should it have been done exactly like this, like all the villages being flooded by the big dams, villages being completely allocated because of big infrastructure projects? Couldn't we do without it as well? So I really hope that there will be no conclusion and that you will just continue the topic a little bit amongst yourselves. Otherwise, if you don't develop this critical thinking, it's very easy to fall into some greenwashing traps and things that get proposed, but they are not real solutions. They don't build the mathematics of how we can make it.
Can I ask one question without turning it into a discussion, and try to answer as briefly as you can with a very, very rough estimate? When do you think we're going to run out of oil?
It's not polite to answer a question with a question, but my reply would be the following: is it that important? Because oil, to a large extent, can be replaced with gas. And the gas resources in the world are, in some places, a couple of times bigger than the oil that was available. I'll tell you, in Nigeria, which is the 8th biggest oil producer in the world currently, their oil resources are tremendous in the delta, but their gas resources are estimated to be about 10 times larger.
But they're much more expensive for extraction. It's much more difficult.
And it concerns the oil companies
What
very
means
much.
much more expensive when there is no other way for, if we're dependent on fossil fuels, if we don't deliberately make the choice to run out of this, no matter how expensive it is, we'll be locked in this. If all our infrastructure and future decisions and investments which are supposed to pay off in 30 or 40 years are made based on fossil fuels, it doesn't matter if the oil is $40 per barrel or if it's going to be 120. People will make their way through. There was this all times high oil prices, I think in 2007, 2008, just before the crisis. I was working back then for an airline, and I have to tell you that the plans were that the airline industry is about to, at these prices, the airline industry was about to switch to biofuels fully by 2014. Oil is cheap again, so these plans are no longer.
I don't think it was easy for people to go in the middle of the sea and reach with pipes down the earth and dig a huge hole and drag black liquids in there. I don't think that was easy, and they achieved it. So whatever comes next, they will be able to do it.
Yeah, and definitely the people in the suits that take the decisions for the investment are not the ones that risk their lives on the oil platforms.
That's true.
So